Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Likes Books. And I just got done doing a review at Starbucks for my review channel. I reviewed the Andes Mint Frappuccino, and I also purchased the color changing cups, which I'm gonna be doing a giveaway for on my review channel, so you're gonna wanna check that out. And Mel just texted me, and we passed 1,000 members on the Facebook group for a true crime book club, which I'm very, very excited about. Mel went live this morning. She did a live stream, I think from 10 to 11 a.m. on her Instagram, so please follow Mel. Her Bookstagram is GingerGonzoReads. It's listed below. You can go find her below. But I'm really, really excited that so many people are joining the book club, and so many people that weren't on the Goodreads one originally. So we've got the Goodreads group, and then we've got the Facebook group, and all of the people, you know, in between. So I think the Facebook group is something at like 2,300, and I'm sure a lot of those members are also in the Facebook group, but it's really, really exciting. The group is growing. It's going to be really fun. I'm loving it. And people are posting about Richard Ramirez and what a freak he was and all the horrible things he did. So people are posting things every single day over there. It's really fun. And so go join the Facebook group. All you have to do is ask to join and be a member, and then there's 3 questions you have to answer, and I think it's like, why do you want to be part of the group? What's your favorite genre of true crime? And what we mean by that is like serial killers, or you know, like maybe mafia stories, or cults, or whatever, you know? So anyway, and then you also have to say whether or not you're willing to follow the rules of the group, which are basically like rules that are, I think, common sense, but who knows these days, like be kind and things like that. And this is my 3rd day in a row doing a driving book vlog, and I thought I would, since I just got my coffee. It's 88 degrees in Indianapolis. I have the air, I have to, like, this is it on high, but if I put the air on high, then nobody can hear me. So I was thinking today, because I like to just like drive around and talk, obviously, because I have a vlog where I do that every day. I was thinking what to talk about today, and I was thinking about, you know, like last summer, I started this thing on my BookTube channel, and I never even finished it, which was where it was called like grocery store reads or something like that. It was basically like, you know, books that you would go into the grocery store, more like pulp fiction novels that are like kind of on the, not always, but sometimes are on the top 10 bestseller list. Like, who's calling me? Oh, my husband's calling me. Well, that'll have to wait. So anyway, but you know, like James Patterson, Sidney Sheldon, David Baldacci, Danielle Steele, Jackie Collins, those kind of authors, you know what I'm saying? Those books that you can get in like the grocery store, like when you're checking out, or like, you know what I'm saying, or, you know, those are the kind of books that I was doing last summer, John Grisham, things like that. Because for so long after I graduated from college, and when I got sober, I just enjoyed coming home and just really escaping into like a really good story. And I can remember it all kind of started for me with James Patterson, because somebody recommended the book Kiss the Girls to me, and I'm not sure if it goes Kiss the Girls and then Along Came a Spider, but for some reason I feel like Along Came a Spider came first and then Kiss the Girls. But I remember reading Kiss the Girls back then, and I know that James Patterson had many books that came out before that, like Black Friday and Season of the Machete and things like that, and the Murder Kill Club or something like that. But that was like his first big book that got really noticed. So that would have been around 95 that I was reading that, 1995. And I became obsessed with James Patterson. His books were at that point, I would say his first probably 5 or 10 books were just absolutely fantastic. And I believe that he wrote them. I mean, if you read Kiss the Girls, it's very in-depth compared to the stuff that he puts out now, which I think is not good. It's like impossible to even get through, to be quite honest. And I can't remember, I tried to read one last year, or I did read one last year, I don't remember what it was. The year before I read Zoo, and it took me like 4 months to get through. It was so bad. I mean, they should be very quick reads, but they're really hard to read, you know? Because they're just so boring sometimes. And it's kind of sad. And you know, I know a lot of people today still really love James Patterson, and I think read what you like to read. But they're just really not very well-developed stories compared to what he first did. And it makes me sad because I feel like kind of as an author, like he's kind of sold out to some degree, because at any given time, he has like 5 books out that are all on the bestseller list, and he's got, you know, books for kids and books for teenagers and books for adults and romance novels and mysteries and this, and it's like, but he has a group. I mean, he's come out and said this. You can take his master classes. He has a group of people that write his books basically for him, and if you look, there's a formula for how he writes his books. I mean, every chapter is 2 to 3 pages, and they're usually like the same amount of chapters and whatever. So I'm just very bored with all of that, you know? But at the time, I loved those books. I read them all, and I thought they were really good, and I couldn't wait to go to the grocery store on my way home from work and get the new James Patterson novel. And then I read The Lottery by David Baldacci, and I loved it. I just absolutely loved it. And was just, you know, because I grew up reading like Jackie Collins' Lucky and Rockstar, and when I was in high school and junior high, I loved Jackie Collins. And my stepmom, that's a lot of what she read when I was growing up, so she would kind of just throw those books to me if I wanted to read them when I was in high school, and I loved them. And Jackie Collins told stories like nobody's business, and I don't feel like she ever sold out. And I haven't read Danielle Steele in a long time, but I don't really feel like she ever sold out either. Nora Roberts is trying new things. I think that, you know, like I read the first book of her kind of fantasy series that she put out, and I thought it was excellent. I thought it was really well done. I was super impressed with it. And I like when authors try new things, you know, and I had the opportunity of interviewing Jackie Collins twice, and really kind of finding out, like, you know, she just loves pop culture, and she reads a lot of like Elmore Leonard, so she loved the whole idea of the old mystery and things like that, and she carried that through with everything she did. But then I remember I read The Lottery by David Baldacci, and I don't know who recommended it to me, but it ended up being, like, it was, I literally could not put it down. And I think there's something to be said about those kind of like dime store, we used to call them dime store novels, I don't know what you call them today, but you know, those books that you just get at the grocery store. They're not necessarily literary fiction, they're not like classics like I talked about yesterday, but they're just, you know, those books that, whatever, you know, and so I read The Lottery, and I loved it, and that was at a time where I was just reading I was reading anything that somebody would hand me and say, this is a really good book, you know. And there was a whole summer where I became very obsessed with John Grisham. I had seen the movie The Pelican Brief, I think, or maybe it was The Firm. I think I saw The Firm, and I had read the book The Firm, and so that whole summer, like I was house sitting for my dad a lot, and he lives out on a lake, and so like they were gone like most of the summer, and I was house sitting for him, and so I would sit out there, and I caught up. Like I read The Street Lawyer, which is one of my favorite books to this day, and I read all of these. John Grisham writes some fantastic books, and I read some of these and I remember being out there and being terrified, you know, at night, sitting on the patio reading these John Grisham novels, but I loved them. I loved every minute of them. And so last summer, one of the books that I picked was Camino Island by John Grisham, and I didn't even like get into it. And Mel, who is my partner for the True Crime Book Club, of which you probably know by now because I've said it 9 million times, she said, did you ever finish Camino Island one day? This was a couple months ago, and I said, no, why? And she said, I read it, and it was actually really good. And I said, really? And it was about these guys that stole the original F. Scott Fitzgerald manuscripts from Princeton University. It's not a true story. And then they tried to sell them, and it was like this company trying to find out who stole them before they had to pay, before some company had, like the insurance company hired this company to find out and do this deep investigation, before they had to pay Princeton University some ridiculous amount of money, like $25 million in insurance money or something. But it was about this island, and it all centered around this. They sent this woman to this island. I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but it was basically about this guy that owns this bookstore, and the island was kind of like, even though it was supposed to be farther up north in Florida, it reminded me of like Key West, and this really small island, and all the writers that were friends there together and stuff. And it was so good, and I read it and I listened to it in like on Audible in like 3 days. And just recently, John Grisham put out the sequel. I don't know why, but it was called Camino Wins. It was good, but it wasn't as good as the first. And I kind of wondered, like, out of all of his books, why that one was the one that he put a sequel out to. But, you know, it makes me kind of miss a lot of those books. Like Jackie Collins, like the Lucky Santangelo series, I loved. I didn't read the entire thing, but I read a lot of it. Rockstar, I loved. I think I read, like, the Hollywood Wives, all those, that were, like, that era of Jackie Collins. But I used to just really love reading those kind of books, you know, those books that you get at the grocery store and you just cannot put down. I remember reading Michael Connelly. I actually, I think this was in our book club too, or this was one of those books that I picked for that. Michael Connelly's Void Moon. And Michael Connelly writes a lot about Harry Bosch, and I was bored right from day one of that series. My uncle Dave loved the Harry Bosch books by Michael Connelly, but I just couldn't get into it at all. And I've always kind of wanted to get into a series, and actually, last year I bought the first book in the Jonathan Kellerman series that I think it's about a psychiatrist, I can't remember. But anyway, The Cradle Will Fall or something like that. I bought the first one on Audible and I haven't listened to it yet. So I need to do that at some point, because I've really wanted to get into like a series, like a Janet Ivanovich series or something like that. And I never have, because I haven't really found a series like that I really wanted to get into. You know, like I did read like that Murder Detectives Club book that I almost said our favorite breakfast place, that Patterson put out. You know, I read like the first 3 of those and whatever. My friend Scotty that passed away last year, he was obsessed with James Patterson. Like, even towards the end of his life, like he bought every single one of his books when they came out, and he had like the entire collection, and he loved them, and he would just tear right through them. And I don't know, maybe I need to try another James Patterson book. What was the one that I read last? Oh, The Quickie. The Quickie was what I read. Yeah, it just was not good. It wasn't developed. I didn't care about the characters. I just thought it was boring. But I do want to read some more of those books. So please, in the comment section below, let me know what some of your favorite, just like pulp novels that, you know, don't have great meaning to them, but maybe they're just really fun escape novels. You know, I feel like sometimes, I loved what everybody had to say yesterday about the classics and the historical references. And there was somebody that said something to the effect of that one of the things that pulls them in about the classics is that they're still so beautifully written so many years later. And somebody quoted an author, and they were just, I don't know, I loved what you guys said about the classics. I'm at a point in my life where, I know this is going to sound strange, being that I'm only going to be 48, but I think if I was 20, I would feel different. When I was 20, I felt like I needed to read more of the classics. At this age, I really just want to read what I enjoy reading, what I like reading, and what I think is like a book that I literally can't put down. And sometimes with the classics, when I finish them, I think, wow, that was a fantastic book. But the journey wasn't necessarily enjoyable getting there, if that makes sense. Like, it was like walking through quicksand to some degree. Now the overall experience at the end, I can look back and say, oh, the writing was beautiful, historically it was beautiful, the book is important, but like the journey of getting through there was really difficult. I don't sometimes love that. I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't know how many books left I have to read, you know, the age that I'm at, that I want to read what I want to read. I remember one of my good friends that my ex lived with when I first met him, she's still a good friend of mine today, and so she and her wife were like, are two of my dearest friends. And her grandparents, who are now passed away, but her grandma and grandpa owned like along the river. It was absolutely magical. I know it probably doesn't sound that way, but it really was. There was this river. They were from Seymour, Indiana, so this was Jackson County in Indiana, and it's beautiful country down there. It's absolutely beautiful country. I actually looked one time to see like the top 10 most beautiful drives in the United States, and like number 2 was I-65 South from Chicago to Louisville, Kentucky, and that goes right through like Jackson County, and it's just absolutely beautiful along there. And there's like Lake Muscatatuck, and it's I don't know if it's a lake or a river. I think it's Muscatatuck River, I don't know, but anyway, it's just gorgeous through there, and just fields and all this kind of stuff. But her grandparents there was like this river area, and there was like this track of trailers, but they weren't really trailers. I don't know how to explain them. They were like, you know, houses, but more like small trailers, and they were along the river. And so each person had like, they were just like little river houses, and everybody had up all these Christmas lights and bonfires outside, and it was super, like, it was all clean. They kept it so clean, and it was like just like 5 older couples. And so her grandparents would stay out there like in the summer, even though it was only like 10 minutes from their house. And I remember we went there one night to make s'mores, and so she was like, come say hi to my grandma. So we went inside, we said hi to her, and her grandma was laying on like the couch inside, and she was just laying back, and she had like one of those, it was like some like my uncle used to read this. I can't remember what they're called. Like I can't think of an author, but you know, like the military thriller books, like the Jason Bourne books. She was like reading one of those. She was laying on her back reading it, and it just looks so cozy. And I thought, that's what I want my future to look like. You know, just relaxed, laying on a couch, reading like one of those novels you just absolutely can't put down. And I miss those days. Like, I feel like I've listened to so many great audiobooks this year, and I, you know, started so many good books, but I don't know, like, those were the days where I just, like, could not get enough out of a book. And I can remember staying up, having to work at, like, 8 the next morning, staying up until, like, 3:30 in the morning reading a James Patterson book, because it just was, I could not put it down. It was so good, you know? So I guess, you know, I don't know, I miss those days of the dime store novel, Pulp Fiction. If you guys love some of those, will you put them in the comment section below and let me know? I also want to say this really quick. I really want some suggestions so I can get some this summer. I don't care how old they are. I don't care if they're 40 years old. I want to say, it was interesting to me yesterday too. And this is like, I don't mean to ask this in a rude way, but I almost kind of wondered what like the ages were of the people that said it, because several people listed classics, and some people like, oh my God, there was a deer just sitting right over there eating. And somebody, I can't remember what the other books were, but they listed like 5 or 6, but one of the books they listed was Perks of Being a Wallflower, which is crazy to me, because I actually just bought Stephen Chbosky's new book. He has a new book out after 20 some years or whatever. But like, I feel like I would consider, and maybe this is just my age, you know, because I'm not wanting to think of it as a classic yet, but I would consider Perks of Being a Wallflower a contemporary. I wouldn't consider it a classic. I consider classics like books that are like, I don't know. I guess I don't know what I consider a classic. You know, it's crazy. I mean, To Kill a Mockingbird, I think, came out in 60 or 61, so we're really not that far. I mean, in reality, what are we, 60 years from that, you know? I don't know, like, what do you consider a classic? I think it's a good question. You know, how far back do we have to go? Or is it just a book that is, oh, somebody, and the same person I think said Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which, I mean, obviously will be considered a classic, but I thought, how do we define classics today? Like, not just, you know, academically, but like between us, like just talking people here, you know? How do we define what a classic is? Is, I guess, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, do you wonder that? Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching these. I'm having such a fun time doing these. If you like these and you'd like to see more of them, give me some topics. Put some topics in the comment section below, and I'll do a few more of these, because I'm really having fun doing these driving vlogs, and they're relaxing for me, and it's a great way for me just to kind of talk about books, which I love to do. So anyway, I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.